Alright, so I've got a lot to talk about today. I've been watching this live stream and it's got me inspired to talk about a lot of stuff. And there's a lot going on right now. There apparently was a missile strike by Russia attacking Poland or something. Donald Trump just announced he's running for president, which is crazy, being that he's like pretty much got impeached and he had the insurrection deal and he had the nuclear papers in his Mar-a-Lago place, and it's just weird. So I was like, it's what's that other woman that was running for? I don't know. There's a bunch of people doing a bunch of live streams tonight, and then I saw Brandon Sanderson doing a live event for his new book, The Lost Metal. I was like, let me watch that because I don't care about all the crap going on in the world right now. And Brandon Sanderson is a fucking beast. If you guys aren't readers and you don't know what's going on, I'm going to try to explain it to you. Kind of want to just go back to the beginning and tell you how I got into like getting into reading again and stuff, and how I got into books, period. And it all started with this image that somebody had posted. That basically they read all these books, and they went and they got pictures of the spines and they just stacked them in the order that they read them in. So if you go back to like, here's reading some Neil Stephenson, sci-fi stuff, and you got the Hunger Games, and he started reading all these Expanse books that I've been reading lately. Andy Weir, and he gets like, that's 2017, and then you go back to 2018, and he's reading like, here's some Heinlein, you can see like Scalzi he's reading, and more Neil Stephenson, some Japanese stuff, and Evil Suits of Fall, and he's like, Tiamat's Wrath came out, so some of this is like when the release dates of books happen. I kind of want to do one of these because it's kind of cool. You get a Ready Player One, Old Man's War. Wait, why would you read that after Ghost Brigades? That doesn't make sense. Oh, maybe it's you go down. Yeah. That would make more sense. So then in 2020, you got these books, Alistair Reynolds, Scalzi, Stephen King The Stand, Ready Player 2, and then when you hit the Brandon Sanderson books, it's like Sanderson, and like that's all he's read after. And somebody had commented on this, like, no bookshelf survives an encounter with Brandon Sanderson or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Who's this Brandon Sanderson guy? And that's what got me into like trying to figure out what was going on, what the big deal was. And I was in the Mustaches Guild and Path of Exile at the time. They were talking about Brandon Sanderson. So that's kind of why I got into like looking into it. The Stormlight Archive, figuring out what it was, and Mistborn. And so Mistborn, The Final Empire is the first book I read. There's a lot of ways you can enter the Cosmere, he calls it. This series is about people that can, they're Alamanters, they eat metals, and they can burn them in their body, and it gives them superpowers. It's supposed to have been like a trilogy, and then he added like an Era 2 trilogy, and I think now the Lost Metal is going to be the beginning of the third era, sort of. I think he has like 13 books planned, and he's going to take it into... Era 2 is kind of like a steampunk, I think. Or they have guns or something like that. Which he said it was like taking a risk with the publishers, because this first like fantasy kind of setting was taken off, and then he's just like, now we're going a completely different direction. And it worked. And then he's going to eventually take it to like a sci-fi kind of time period where he keeps time jumping. And he was talking about maybe doing like a cyberpunk thing in between there. Make it like a 16-book series, because that would make sense, because like the number of metals, there's like 16 in this series. And then you got the Stormlight Archive, which is kind of like the Wheel of Time. It's an epic 10-book planned series, but there's like some mini books in between, like Dawn Shard and Edge Dancer and stuff. And I mean, it's just crazy on its own. And you have this character Hoyd that travels. You don't know what he is. He's some kind of demigod or something. He appears in like multiple, like these books and the other books and some other books that are like standalone books, and it's all kind of connected, like the Stephen King multiverse. It's kind of connected, but it's like really far in the background, like just kind of joking around kind of a thing, right? So he announced in this live stream tonight that the gloves are off and he's going to start taking that stuff seriously, and he's going to actually like make it like way more connections, and he's going to like have the continuity. Most people don't do a lot of like weird continuity like that because you have to keep up with all the continuity errors and make sure you don't make errors, I guess. And he's going to actually take the time and like write it into the story and do all this crazy stuff, which on its own is insane. Like Stephen King's the only one I know that actually seems to have done that before. He said something about Clive Cussler, but I don't know what he's talking about. And then he's also got his friend Dan Wells. He's going to have him write some Cosmere books. And he's also like planning all these like movie deals and like audio books, and he keeps having these fundraisers on Kickstarter. And the last one, if you didn't see my video about it, he announced he just written like 4 or 5 secret books in his off time during the pandemic because he's so prolific. Like, if I didn't read all these other sci-fi books and fantasy book series that I'm wanting to read and get into, and whatever Michael Crichton series and Dean Koontz's and Greg Isles and all these people I want to read, if I just read Brandon Sanderson, I don't think I could keep up. I think he would write faster than I could read his books, especially now that he's got Dan Wells working with him. So it's crazy. The last Kickstarter for those secret novels, the first week it had made like $27 million. And they go from like $250 to $500 deals where you get all 4 books in leather-bound editions and signed, and get all this like merch with it and stuff. And he even does like a podcast on the side. Like when he's doing his podcast, he's sitting there signing these cover pages that go on the inside of the book where it makes it a signed copy. And that raises the price to like $150. Like if you get like a regular, maybe not that much. I think a leather bound is like $100 or $150, and then you get the signed copy is $250. So he's not making like $100 or $150 every time he writes his name. That's crazy. They were talking about like who would play different characters in movies, and that made me think maybe I should start my own series because I think I'm good at like casting people for stuff. Maybe I could even go back and do movies that have already been made and like say this is who the cast should have been. But I think I'm good at like figuring like movies that haven't come out yet that they haven't announced who the actors are. I could tell you like who should play the characters, and I think that would kind of be viral because people are really into that kind of stuff, especially if it's something that hasn't even been announced. So I may do that. And I also kind of want to start writing my own books because I feel like I'm working 4 or 5 days a week, and on my 2 days I'm off, I could write on the days I'm not read because I read at work. I come home and then I write the other 2 days. Because I keep getting all these ideas. I had a crazy idea for just like one little thing in a fantasy novel I don't think anybody's ever really done. It seems like a really cool idea. And if I don't do it, I'm going to die and nobody will know what it is. So I need to either like put my ideas somewhere that if I die then they get sent out to the universe or something. Because I got a lot of gold I'm sitting on here. I don't know if it's just laziness or procrastination. That I feel like I could write novels if I want to, but I just don't. I don't know why. It just never seems to happen. I don't really have time. I mean, I do have time, but I end up using it for like making these videos or playing video games or watching TV. Because I want to catch up on my TV as well as my reading. There's like so much shit I want to do. Also, I wanted to kind of add on to my Joe Abercrombie review yesterday, or today. This morning I made a review about the Blade itself. It was a good book. It just didn't pull me in. Like when I'm reading The Expanse or The Stormlight Archive, it's like I'm constantly wanting to read it because I want to know what happens next. And Blade itself didn't have a plot really. It was just like a bunch of stuff happened that wasn't really connected to anything yet. So it was like you didn't really care to know what happens next because none of it was like there wasn't any tension, there wasn't any like cliffhanger kind of stuff. But there was also these creatures they call the Shanka that they call flatheads. I didn't mention. Now, and it's like it doesn't tell you what they are. It makes you think they're like some kind of humanoid things. And they kind of came into the picture when they talked about this guy that was one of Logan Ninefingers' group named the Dog Man. So it kind of made you think maybe they're kind of dog people. But then he called them flatheads, and I'm like, the only flathead I know is like a flathead catfish. So like I kind of imagine them as being like fish people, which I'm sure they're not fish people because that'd be too stupid. And then there's flathead screwdrivers, of course. That doesn't make sense. But then like I got to thinking about it more as the book went on. I was like, crocodiles have flat heads. Maybe they're kind of like lizard men. They're kind of like the draconians in Dragonlance, maybe. So I kind of like, I don't know what everybody else thinks of them or if these even explain what they are, but that would be cool. What else do I want to talk about? I feel like I have a bunch of stuff to talk about, and it's only been 10 minutes. Yeah, I figured out what it was. Okay. So, I'm going to announce something that I've had an idea for. I also had some weird dreams last night. I can't remember what they were, but it was worth making a video about if I can remember those. And then a couple of nights ago, I had some kind of weird stuff I dreamed about. But, my library, I was looking up Burning Sanderson on there. Try to find some of his books because they're too expensive to buy. They're like $30 for the hardcovers if you don't get any special leather or signed editions, any of that. They just buy themselves hardbound. Sanderson books are like $30 each. So I didn't know the library was so efficient. It's like one of the only government entities that is actually good. You just request a book and they get it. Somebody said don't ever donate books to the library because they can't put those books on the shelf. So if you're donating books to the library, they just consider that you're like a friend of the library and they put your books on one of those little $1.50 shelves and they just resell them. They don't put them out for like people to read. Even if it's a book that they don't already have on the shelf, they can't use it like that. They have to get it from a special business or something. So I requested Brandon Sanderson. They had Way of Kings, I think, but they didn't have any other books. So I requested Words of Radiance, Oathbringer, Rhythm of War, and then Mistborn, Will of Ascension, Hero of Ages. I'd read the first one. They didn't have Mistborn. Probably should have requested it too, just so they'd have it. I think that's the only ones I requested. So then, when they got the books in, they called me and they said, we got these books reserved for you. And I was like, oh, I didn't really want to read them right now. I just kind of was going to read them in December and just wanted to get them in the library so I could check them out then. And I was like, oh, okay, so you don't want us to hold them for you. So then I eventually decided to go ahead and read Words of Radiance, and then I read Oathbringer after that, and then I wanted to get Rhythm of War, and somebody had checked it out. So I'd started this thing. I thought I was the only one in town like reading these books, but other people out there wanted to read them too. I don't know why they would... See, nobody checked out Oathbringer, but they checked out Rhythm of War. So then somebody else checked out Words of Radiance. So if you're on Rhythm of War, you don't need to read Words of Radiance, or you at least check out Oathbringer with it. So there's at least two people other than me reading these books. And then they got some other books that I didn't even request. They got Dawn Shard, which is like book 3.5. It's like a shorter novella that happens between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War. And I think it might be the same person that got Rhythm of War, so that would make sense. But they ordered like Edge Dancer too, I think. They got some other books that I didn't even request. Maybe I've got the library into Brandon Sanderson. I did that. So like, I had this idea a while back. I wanted to open a business. In my town, I think it's too small for it to be successful. There's not enough people that read books here, I don't think. Or at least I didn't until like this started happening. But I have to go like to a bigger town. At first I wanted to call it like the Book Nook. It'd be like a place, like a YMCA or a gym membership. You would go and you'd pay a membership for the month, and you could just access it. And then there'd be other stuff like maybe you'd have like a pizza place in there and a coffee shop or something. You get some food, get some coffee, and you wouldn't really sell any books. You wouldn't really check out any books. You go in. There's shelves with all the popular books, just like these shelves back here. And maybe there'd be like multiple copies of like the first book in the series, because most people would like want to get started on a series. So most people like book 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 of like a long series are probably not going to be in use. So you would get your book and you would read it while you're there, and then you would leave it and you would leave it there, and you would like have something you would keep track of what page you're on. So like if you came back, you would have like bookmarks or like folding the pages or anything like that. Now, what makes this cool is there would be these rooms. Like, if you go get a massage or something, like you have multiple rooms, or like a sex dungeon, whatever you call it. You have like different rooms that have like soundproofing on the walls, and then you would make it look like someplace you would want to read in. Like if you're reading fantasy novels, it would look like you're in the Black Castle in Game of Thrones. You know, you got like a hearth, you got a fireplace. All this would be like monitors that has like a fireplace on it, or he had a monitor that looks like a window that looks out into like a snowy setting or whatever. You can see it looks like it's snowing. Now my dog's freaking out. You could also have like ambient music or noise to make it sound like the wind or like the fireplace or whatever. And you have different kinds of chairs, like a big comfy chair if you're in like a fancy, or if it's like you're reading a sci-fi book, it's like you're in fucking outer space. You look at the monitor and it's like there's a planet behind you and you're like sitting in one of those cockpit of a shuttle. And I don't know, there's readouts and stuff. Maybe you could have rooms that have like multiple people being there at the same time. If you want to like hang out and read with your friends. What else are the kind of genre? Like a horror one, you could have like a really spooky looking room. You could have one that just like looks outside to actual what's outside, if it's like in a nice area the building is. And then in the center, maybe, or maybe off to the side, you'd have like a big tabletop gaming room where you'd have all these board games and stuff, and you could have people come in and play Dungeons and Dragons or other kind of board games, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and they would all just be like all included with your membership. It probably costs a fortune to do this, but I think membership fees, if you had enough people, because people wouldn't be there all the time, that it would pay for itself. You have to buy all the books. But like, I feel like it'd be a cool idea. I don't know. I've always wanted to have like, I had this idea a long time ago for like a movie theater / bowling alley / arcade / restaurant. And maybe like have a skate park outside, just like a bunch of stuff. That's cool stuff to do in one place. Like a Walmart of fun. Like, I don't know. Not an amusement park, per se. Kind of like an amusement park. Like that fucking place in Ninja Turtles where they're all like skateboarding and there's arcade games and the guy gives them cartons of cigarettes. Not really like that, but kind of like that. Or like the Angry Nintendo Nerd's house. It's just like a cool place you want to hang out, and you just pay like $30-40 a month to be there, and it's worth it. Who wouldn't pay $30-40 a month to just have a place you could go and hang out like that? I don't know. I feel like people would make fun of it, though. I feel like it'd get made fun of. Let's go to this book place and read books. I don't know. People are assholes. I don't know. Somebody's probably going to steal my idea now that I put it out there, though.